Hello, I'm Amy. Today, let us talk about 12 principles of animation. The first principle is squash and stretch, gives a sense of weight and volume to drawn objects. For example, a bouncing ball, which appears stretched when falling and squashed when it hits the ground. In terms of physics, we say bulk modulus of a ball, depending on its volume and pressure. That is change in pressure divided by ratio of change in volume and original volume. Can you think real? Here's an example of a bouncing basketball that you can hear. Let's move on to next principle. The second principle is anticipation. As the action appears more realistic if the audience is given a clue of what happens next, anticipation is used to prepare for the main action of an animated scene. This is a sound of an audience cheering. Or they can laugh. The third principle is staging. Johnston and Thomas defined staging as the presentation of any idea, so that it is completely and unmistakably clear so as the audience's attention is directed to what is of greatest importance in a scene. The essence of staging is keeping focus on what is relevant, eliminating unnecessary detail, and avoiding any confusion. Instruments can be used on this stage. For example, let's take acoustic instruments. This is an acoustic guitar. Also, this is an acoustic piano.
Preview.
If you have taken rock instruments, this is a rock guitar. These are the examples of the instruments. You can find any other instruments as well as percussions like drumbeat, cymbal, etc. We will move on to the next principle. The fourth principle is straight ahead, or pose to pose. A combination of the two techniques is often used to create dynamic and dramatic illusion of movement. Most of computer animation tools assist with the principle by automatically filling in the missing sequences and transitions between keyframes. Thinking about stunts in real movie? See the bike jumps from place to place. From Matrix Reloaded as an example.
Jump on.
But, do be careful, in case of road safety signs. Failure to keep in control may result you in road rage, like car crash. Or the driver is completely drunk. Next, the fifth principle is follow-through and overlapping action. Follow-through relates to parts of the subject that continue to move with inertia after a completed action. To achieve more realism, make the same parts move at different speed with overlapping action. See the antenna on top of the head? When he or she faces down, the antenna will tilt down and making a swept angle. In terms of mathematics and physics, we can find that the line should be solid and is non-bendable. If the line is completely curved or is bended, it is difficult to find the angle. They represent a Greek letter theta as an angle. Theta is measured in radians and degrees. You may like to convert it. For example, 1 radian is approximately equal to 57.3 degrees. Or you can reverse it, say 1 degree is equal to 1 divided by 57.3 radians. The answer is 0.017 radians. Trigonometries can also be applied such as sine, cosine, and tan theta, showing in the right-angled triangle. We also give you a Greek letter pi, If the antenna on top of head makes an angle of 180 degrees, dividing by 57.3 degrees, the answer is approximately 3.14 radians. The fact question is, will the antenna make a full angle when facing downwards? No, because his or her head must end circularly and straight. The tip of the antenna makes a high centrifugal force that flies off, but not maybe. Representing a full angle is equal to 2 pi. This gives a complete circumference for the tip of the antenna. One complete rotation is equal to 360 degrees, or 6.28 radians. We therefore conclude for this principle. I hope you guys are familiar with an angle theta. If yes, then let's see the next one. The sixth principle is slow in and slow out, or sometimes addressed as ease in and ease out. The principle suggests that almost every movement needs time to accelerate and slow down. In terms of metric unit in physics, say, acceleration of an object, measured by distance per unit square time. For example, a ball starts from rest and reaches 10 meters per second in 5 seconds. The answer is 2 meters per second squared, that is, the part of ease in. For an ease out, we will interchange the values of speed and keep the time same. This becomes retardation or simply deceleration. The answer gives a negative value of 2 meters per second squared. That is, the part of ease out. Let's show you a picture. As you can see, this computer programming is also done using loop-out program. If you have added the term ping-pong, the object moves to and fro. When the object stops in another position, there must be a displacement. If the object comes back, the displacement is 0. Next, here's the seventh principle, an arc. Arcs increase the realism of the subject's action, as almost all lifelike objects tend to follow curved paths rather than straight lines. For example, a bouncing ball with an arc has some displacement on the x-axis. The speed on the x-axis does not vary with time, but on the y-axis, it varies with time. There is a gravitational free fall. In the planet Earth, the acceleration due to gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. On the other hand, we compare it with the gravity of Moon. The gravity becomes 1.66 meters per second squared, depending on its radius or circumference of each and every planet. If the radius or circumference of any planet is too small, the gravitation speed will slow down. Hence, the radius or circumference of any planet is directly proportional to its gravitation speed. Let's give it an example of Angry Birds gamma play, but in the real planet Earth. See, the red bird flies at an arc, like a parabola, and he's going to kill green piggies. The bad piggies who try to steal eggs. The birds want to protect eggs and make it hatched. No such small birds are harmed, but piggies are likely to be harmed. You may have noticed the time of flight of each and every bird, no matter how far the altitude may be. Okay, we're more than halfway. 5 principles are left. Here's the next one. The 8th principle is secondary action. Supporting the main action with secondary one adds more dimension to the character animation and gives a scene more life. The principle of staging is very important in applying the actions correctly. Make sure secondary action emphasizes the main action rather than take attention away from it. Recall that an example of the secondary action of Luxo Jr.'s forward motion, it is the rippling of his power cord. Let's give it an next one. 9th principle is timing. Referring to the number of drawings or frames for a given action, correct timing is critical for establishing a character's mood, emotion, and reaction. Simply put, use more frames to create slower action, and less frames for faster one. Now watch this guy who has ninja skills. Next, here's 10th principle. Exaggeration. Employed by Disney was to remain true to reality, just presenting it in a wilder, more extreme form. As a perfect imitation of reality can look static and dull in cartoons, exaggeration is especially useful and livening for animation. That guy is using a loudspeaker as an example. Next, an 11th principle. It's a solid drawing, considers an object following the rules of perspective in three-dimensional space. In terms of mathematics, you might have seen the x, y and z axis on each xy plane, yz plane, and xz plane respectively. Let's take a line segment AB, which measures the distance. A has a coordinate of x1, y1, and z1, whereas B has a coordinate of x2, y2, and z2. That is, in general, we get a required distance formula for line segment AB. In square root, we write an entire square of x2 minus x1, plus entire square of y2 minus y1, plus entire square of z2 minus z1, for three-dimensional basis. If you have started from the origin where x, y, and z are equal to 0, we get the square root of x squared plus y squared plus z squared. Three-dimensional geometry can be a sphere, cylinder, cube, or cone. You can find any other examples like tetrahedron, square pyramid, etc. It must be understanding the basics of sketching, anatomy, weight, balance, light, and shadow. Last but not least, here's 12th principle. Appeal, which reflects compelling attractiveness or charm that can inspire devotion in others. The important thing is that the viewer feels your character not necessarily sympathetic, but always real and interesting. That's it for the show. Subscribe now.